Social Security won't be touched, other than this fraud or something. We're going to find it's going to be strengthened, but won't be touched. Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched.
Nothing.
You don't have to. Now, if there are illegal migrants in the system, we're going to get them out of the system and all of that fraud, but it's not going to be touched.
Yeah, so all of that was a lie. You knew that when he said it, but every day it's proven to be more and more of a lie. Not only the idea that illegal migrants are taking all of your Social Security money, that's not actually how it happens, and it's actually a direct inverse of what's really going on, which is that they contribute through taxes into these programs that they will never legally be allowed to take money out of. But Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid won't be touched. No, there's no need. There's no need. Well, Elon Musk is now doing interviews about how he's going to get into Social Security and start cutting it. And oh, what do you know? Also on Medicaid too, because he recently blessed scrutiny of Medicaid to pay for his mega-maga package. And if I were them, I would call the bill mega-maga, because I don't want people to realize that it's a massive payoff to the wealthiest people in the country that's going to drastically scale back government services that millions and millions of his most devoted followers and voters rely on. That's also longer as a title. I'd probably want to shorten that in the next draft, but also it's more critical. So mega-maga, that sounds way better. See, on Thursday, he and some top White House officials met with Republican senators on the Finance Committee, including the Senate Majority Leader John Thune and John Barrasso as well. Trump indicated to senators he's open to cutting, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse from any mandatory spending, including Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. He also expressed openness to work requirements for Medicaid and discussing ways to reduce the rate of growth of some healthcare programs, which could be counted as potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in savings. So reduce the rate of growth of it. That's just early, that's just pre-cuts. That's all that is. And some of you MAGA people might be like, well, hold on. No, surely he's not gonna actually cut these programs that I love and rely on. He just wants to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Do you guys not get what they mean when they say that? He's not gonna come out and be like, oh, we're cutting it to the bone. Screw you guys, you're gonna be on the streets. He's not gonna say that. He's not a genius or anything, but he's smart enough to know that you should word it differently. And so what they've landed on is waste, fraud, and abuse. And you use those terms because who could be against cutting waste, fraud, and abuse? But they're not gonna be cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. They're gonna be cutting the programs. You don't get $880 billion out of Medicaid in pure waste, fraud, and abuse. You get $880 billion out by cutting it $880 billion. So that's what they're gonna be doing. And we have been cruising in this direction this entire time. Mike Johnson has left the path open from the very beginning on the budget. They're hiding the details because they know how unpopular it'll be, and they don't want the right to get justly freaked out and stop them from doing it. They know that people are gonna be freaked out. They know that these cuts are gonna be wildly unpopular, and they know that they're likely going to have an effect on the midterms. But what they're doing is an incredibly callous and cynical strategy, which is just do it, no matter how damaging it is, no matter how bad the fallout is, whatever, it's done. And it's a year and a half until the midterms. I'm sure we can invent, I don't know, a trans volleyball scandal or something in the meantime. And then maybe people by then will have forgotten. That's what they're doing. Yeah, oh, people are gonna be super mad about the tax cuts for billionaires, but whatever, we're just gonna do it. And then there'll be a caravan, or maybe we'll literally invade Greenland or something to distract the peasants. And that's clearly the strategy here, Brett. What do you think?
I mean, this is just a microcosm of everything the Republicans do, right? So the three things that, at least I'm gonna forget the three if I start saying three. But one is to redefine terms that mean something else. The death tax, that's what it is. It's not an inheritance tax. It's a death tax. The other one is like woke news. Woke, it doesn't mean what it originally meant. Fake news doesn't mean what it originally meant. They just change the meaning of something so they can carry out their pre-existing agenda, right? So they're gonna call it waste, fraud, and abuse. That's not what it is. They're gonna say like, oh, the mechanism that delivers aid to people who can't afford health care in a certain state, we're gonna eliminate that because that is wasteful because money goes to poor people. They've redefined waste. The second thing they do is gut an agency so that they start out by saying like government sucks, and then they find a working government apparatus and they ruin it so it doesn't work, and pretty soon it sucks. And then they get to declare victory and say that it sucks. and be right about it because they ruined it. And the final thing was always already their intention in the first place, and that is what? That is for them to privatize any government stuff that's more efficient than private sector stuff. And there's no bigger industry for that in America than healthcare. Medicare and Medicaid are two government programs that help people that need help. One being the poor for Medicaid, the other being old people for Medicare. Medicare has a much like a 1/3 the percentage of administrative overhead BS costs, which I would label waste, fraud, and abuse. We should take the government to cut waste, fraud, and abuse from the private healthcare industry, because the healthcare industry has much more crap between you and getting the care that you deserve.
Yeah, no, it's obviously just waste. Well, from our point of view, it's waste, but they like it. They want it. They get that money, and
they think it's wasteful that the money goes from tax money to people who need it, who are poor. What a waste of money. The poor people, money going to poor people, what a waste. The abuse, we should be abusing them because we're frauds. That's how it actually is on the right side of the aisle. They just want to wet their beak with money that's just going to people who can't afford health care.
Okay, Brett, here's what you need to do. You need to start up one of your segments, your scripted segments, where you are like a salesman who's coming to town and he has a new definition for a term that he's gonna sell to the Republicans.
That's funny.
And then they can use it. I like it. You can wear like a funny hat. It could be a snake oil thing. Anyway, yeah, so Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, I mean, like, they're doing it. They're doing it. They're gonna kill it.
By the way,
they've been wanting to for decades, they're gonna do it.
So there's a thing called reimbursements, right? So if you're a doctor, you bill something and you get reimbursed for your medical service.
Yeah.
The reimbursements that you get paid as a doctor from the private healthcare industry are the highest traditionally. So and we pay twice as much per person for healthcare in America. We get horrible results, but the money that goes into that, the money goes into the pockets of the health insurance company, and it goes into the pockets of doctors. And doctors do great work, and the highest reimbursements that you get, so you get paid the most as a doctor for private insurance money. Second is Medicare, but it's a lower reimbursement than you get, and traditionally lower than that is Medicaid. So if you're a doctor, you get paid less for Medicaid. Just those tranches show you that it's a more efficient, less wasteful system. Because people are getting paid, the doctors, the hospitals are getting paid less through Medicaid than they are through Medicare and through the private insurance industry. The top ones are more wasteful, but still Medicare with like the middle reimbursement. I've talked to doctors that are like, I'd be fine with a Medicare reimbursement. Medicaid is kind of tough for me, but a Medicare reimbursement. They want to get rid of the Medicaid reimbursement.
Yeah.
So all we're doing is taking every dollar from a poor person instead of the money that folks pay into the system through their taxes, which theoretically is a progressive system, which makes billionaires pay more money. They hate that. The rich hate that. Obviously they would, but their solution is to bankrupt poor people till they die, which is just being a jerk.
100%. That little meeting they had, Trump and Republican senators, you could call that a death panel. Oh, yeah. That's a reference for you.